Before you start going bananas on using arrow functions, let's go through a couple examples of when you probably don't want an arrow function. And all of these are just going to boil down to not having the keyword this, but they're all just sort of different use cases that you'd run into. So, first of all, I've got this button. It's big, a button that says push me. And when someone pushes or clicks that button, I want to toggle the class of on, which should turn it yellow on and off, right? So I said, I've grabbed the button with query selector here, and then I listen for a click on that button. And when someone clicks that button, I'm going to run this following function. It gives us this error, type error cannot read property toggle of undefined. So what does that mean? Well, let's just console log this. And what is this going to be? I'm going to pause here. Hopefully you're yelling at the screen right now. It's window, right? Remember we talked about if you use an arrow function, the keyword this is not bound to that actual function. So we don't actually know what got clicked because we used an arrow function there. So we don't want to use a function there. Take that arrow out. We just use a regular old function, which will allow this to be equal to the actual button, right? This console log this is now equal to the button, and our beautiful clicker is actually working. Now let's take a look at this next one here. When you need a method to bind to an object. So here we've got a person, and we've got this method here that's called score. And whenever we call person.score, it's going to just increment the number inside of it, right? So we got 23. So let's see what we got here. If we say person, what do we got? We got points is equal to 23. If we say person.score, run it once, two, let's run it 3 times. So we should be at 26 now. So if I say person, it's still at 23. Why? Well, let's do the same thing. What is this going to be equal to inside of a function that has been an arrow function? Equal to window. Exactly, right? So we do not want to use this here. We want to use a regular function, which will give us the actual person. There we go. That will actually work. 24. And you might be screaming at me right now saying, even better, we haven't talked about this yet, but there's a function or an object improvement here where when you have a method on an object, you can simply just type that. Now we're going to go into that a little bit more, but that's just a look ahead. We could have also used that. And that is the equivalent to just a regular typed out function, not an arrow function. Next up, we have this when you need to add a prototype method. So here I've got a class, and we haven't learned about classes, but just know that this is a way for us to make new cars, right? So I have this class constructor where when you call new car, we pass it the type of car as well as the color of the car. And so I say the Beamer is a BMW that is blue. The Subi is a Subaru that is white. So let's go ahead and look at them. So let's say Subi. There we go. Is a Subaru that's white. The Beamer is a BMW that's blue. Now, after the fact, I added on this prototype method. And what that allows us to do is that even after these things have been created, we can add methods onto all of them. So I said car.prototype.summarize, which will allow me to do things like subi.summarize. And you see that it's auto-completing it there because it's available to me. Even though I added it after we created the car, because I added it to the prototype, it's available in every object that has been created from there. So what this prototype does is it returns this.make, which is the make that we passed in, and this.color in like a sentence. But when you call it, this.car is undefined in the color undefined. Why is that? It's because we try to be cool. We try to be a bit of a hot shot here by using an arrow function. Again, why don't we use an arrow function here? Because we explicitly need the keyword this. So a regular function would do. Give that a save. Now if we call subi.summarize, it says it's a white. If we call beamer.summarize, we get BMW in blue. So again, use a regular function for that. And then finally, this is little bit different. It doesn't have to do with the keyword this, but we don't have access to the arguments object when you use an arrow function. So this is helpful for when you want to run a function. Like right here, this function is going to take unlimited arguments. It might take 1, it might take 100. And it's going to just say like, this child was born first, right? So here's an example. Order of children, I'm passing in Jill as the first argument, Wes as a second argument, and Jenna as a third argument. And when I run it, It says reference error arguments is not defined. So arguments is a keyword that we have in JavaScript that's going to give us an array or array-ish value of everything that was passed in, which is 1, 2, 3 items. And you do not get the arguments object if you use an arrow function. You want to use a regular function, which is going to give us the actual content that we need. So again, go through all those really quickly. Make sure that you aren't just using arrow functions willy-nilly. But in general, if you do not need the arguments object, or you do not need this, or you know that you will not need it in the future, then you can feel free to go ahead and use an arrow function on everything else.